Okay, well, it is 5 o'clock, so we will call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting for September the 23rd, and Mayor McMillan and Councillor Heeman sends their regrets. They will not be attending this meeting. So we'll go to item number 2, which is the additions to the agenda. We actually don't have any additions. We have a deletion to the agenda, and that's 7.1. So that will bring us to a motion to approve the agenda then as amended. If I could get a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Lockie and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Announcements. I have a couple. So this week is National Rail Safety Week. It runs from September the 23rd to the 29th. And this week is dedicated to educating the public on the importance of following railway crossing safety measures to prevent tragic accidents. And then number 2 is Save the Beep. So Saturday, September the 28th, 2024 is Test Your Smoke Alarm Day. So all Ontarians are encouraged to learn more about smoke alarms, fire safety, and home fire escape planning, which can save the lives of you and your loved ones. And I believe that there'll be some information on our website regarding that. And just wanted to thank all of the many organizers and volunteers for this year's Thorndale Fall Fair. They looked after every detail, including the weather, which was amazing. So again, thank you for all of their work, hard work for that community celebration. And that brings us to presentations and delegations. And we are joined this evening by Bill Rayburn, CAO, and Warden DeVete. Have a seat, please. And welcome.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, Chair. What's the right way? I don't know what to say, actually. I've never had to do that one. Yeah. Okay, that solves the problem. It's our pleasure to be here, and we tried to do this earlier. Apologize. I guess the calendars didn't work very well. I think there was a little bit on both sides. We had to do some shifting, so we say it's better late than never. So I think you get an updated version of everything we were going to say before. Actually, here's some progress reports. So, the presentation tonight is going to highlight some of the projects we've been working on to enhance our services and ensure sustainable growth and make sure we're serving our communities properly. It is my pleasure to introduce our CAO, Bill Rayburn, and he's going to take us through the presentation and start with budget highlights and then talk about some of the things that we're thinking about doing in the future, as well as ongoing local initiatives. So I'll turn the mic over to him.
Thank you, Ina. The presentation is, as Ina mentioned, usually happens a lot earlier in the year. So we start off with budget highlights because that's pretty exciting because you don't know yet. So pretend you don't know what happened in the budget. But we started off, we'll move forward a little bit, Sarah, just talking a little bit about the budget here. And there was a tax rate increase of 2.93% this year. One of the things that I'll point out is that if you want even more details on what's going on with the budget, we have a document called the Financial Outlook for 2024 that I can share. Actually, David, you know what? I'm going to send it to you guys anyways because it's good reading. And it just dives a little deeper into what's going on with the budget and where the direction is. It also does a nice job of comparing and contrasting Middlesex County with other counties, especially other counties in the region that deliver similar services. And it's a good bragging opportunity for me to show everybody where our tax rates are compared to everyone else, which are exceedingly low generally compared to other counties in the area. So I'll send that document on to David and then he can distribute it to you. And if you have any questions about the budget or where we're going, this year's budget was, I think, a little different than most in that we spent a lot of time talking about philosophy, probably more so than any other year, about where we're headed. And some of that is a lot of those discussions end up in policy statements that you'll see, like even development charges, I think is on the agenda tonight, about growth paying for growth. And we had a really long philosophical discussion about the future of the budget and who was going to pay for what going forward. And especially around infrastructure, because infrastructure demands continue to increase in this county and how that's going to be paid for. And then there's aging infrastructure. So a whole pile of things are Our infrastructure management plan is coming out of that. Our facilities master plan is coming out of that. The development charges document is coming out of that. A whole bunch of things have come out of our budget deliberations, including this percentage, and it's all highlighted for you in this financial outlook document that I'll send you as well. And then a look ahead is really kind of a look sideways at this point. What do we got, Sarah, for that one? We've got economic development. That's on the agenda actually for tomorrow to talk about economic development and the future economic development. In general, I approached the budget committee this year and said, I've had this constant theme really with county council, which is we have an enormous amount of residential assessment in this county, and we're way behind compared to our competitors in commercial and industrial. That's wrong and bad for a whole pile of reasons. I tell this story often about how I grew up playing SimCity. Most of you probably are too young to understand what SimCity was back in the day, but it was a fantastic game where if you didn't get the balance right, then your city would fail. And for sure, if you just have residential assessment and only residential growth without continued commercial and industrial growth, you're not going to do well in SimCity. You're not going to do well in Middlesex County. And we're out of sync with where we should be. So a lot of our investment and a lot of our thinking is around how do we increase commercial and industrial development in this county so that we just don't become a bedroom community to the communities that do have industrial and commercial growth. So part of that was a challenge to council to say, we just can't simply do things the way we've done it before in economic development and expect a different outcome. And so we were over here and now we're way over here talking about economic development corporations and what that might bring to help turn the situation around in terms of that assessment mix. And also in terms of bringing some of the leaders in the private sector together with public sector leaders to see what can be done for future economic development. So it's quite a strategy. So we're at the strategy point tomorrow with county council and we'll see what happens. And then if it goes, whatever direction it goes, there'll be an implementation. We'll either double down on what we're doing or we'll be moving in a new direction after tomorrow and working towards an implementation plan. I did talk a little bit already about the development charges. An important principle for council was we haven't had development charges. One of the only counties that doesn't have development charges in the area, one of the only municipalities that doesn't have development charges in the area. And because we've grown at a steady pace, our infrastructure demands, we've been able to pay for out of the levy, and we've done it in real time. Like when I say we haven't even used, we haven't even borrowed to do it. We've done it in real time because this is a very financially healthy county in every single way you can imagine. Zero debt, low tax rates, but also the ability to finance things in real time whenever they happen, which is a great luxury to have. The problem that we have now is none of those other great factors have changed. It's just that the growth that's happening in this area is astronomical compared to where it was just 5 years ago. And in talking to Ina and the rest of county council about this, it's just not sustainable to continue to pay for that type of growth outside of development charges and to continue to do it off the tax base, off the levy in real time. So that's why development charges are moving forward, and we'll see how that goes. But it's moving forward for sure. The county loan program is again more of the same out of the budget deliberations in that we need to refocus on growth infrastructure. We have very little trouble, in my view, getting people to want to build houses here. It's just making sure we have the infrastructure to support them. And that's the really tough part. If you sit in my chair, you see this incredible swing where we were kind of right-sized from an infrastructure perspective to support the residential growth that we had at the pace we had. And then what happened was there was massive residential growth, and that led to some planning issues because all of a sudden you have so many planning applications. I'm talking about, pre-COVID and during the COVID period. And now we're back to, okay, do we have the infrastructure to support them? And county loan program is great because it helps local municipalities to have some ways to lower the cost of infrastructure development going forward for water and wastewater and other programs that they need. And we agree, we think this will help with long-term assessment diversification. So we're excited about those changes as well. There's a bunch of, on the next slide, Sarah, there's a bunch of things there about developing some new programs in economic development and in social services. The early on programs, I was telling Michelle and I was telling some others, my son's taking the MCTO program, and they said, talk about a board in your municipality with one of the questions today that is making a real difference and doing something different. I picked the Middlesex County Library Board. I know I'm not taking the MCTO program, but he asked me and I said Middlesex County Library Board because they are doing things for the last decade that are really, really interesting, that are about advancing beyond traditional library services. Evidence of that is everywhere. That's why this council in the past has spent so much money on having a comprehensive library here, where social services early on, a variety of different programs that are not traditional library programs are advancing. And there was a time period where I was in this council chamber and there's a counselor who sat right over there. And I remember the question specifically, Michelle, and he asked me, he said, our library is really going to make a difference in the future in the digital age. And I said, no, if we continue to do exactly what we did before. I think it will change them and hurt them. But that's not what's happening here. We're expanding and growing them in new ways that make them more relevant to the community. So that's basically the answer that my son put in his thing. But yeah, it's a really fantastic development of what's happened with social services in the library. And there's everyday evidence of it right here in this community. Middlesex County Connect is a program the warden's passionate about and many people are passionate about, related to transit and maintaining the funding, because if we're going to have industrial and commercial development, we have to get the people to that. And transit is an important component of making that happen. So that's an important initiative as well. Dirk put a whole bunch of stuff on the next page there about all the amazing things that are happening in planning development, but it's the basic story is what I told you already. You're going to get run over with residential development in Middlesex County in the next few years. Already one of the fastest growing areas in Canada. Nothing looks like it's going to change in that regard, especially now as it's keeping the infrastructure in place to make sure we can keep pace with all the people that want to move here. So then I'll just move past Dirk's propaganda, but there's quite a bit of it there. Oh, we'll just mention, sorry, let's go back one about the work that they're doing on the digital planning, because just keeping pace with the change, we can't do planning the way we always have. Keeping pace with that is really important. And they've done a lot of good work on GIS and other digital planning initiatives to streamline the planning process. So I'll say that. And then, MLPS, my favorite, because I'm spending about 60 to 70% of my time there now. We're down 2 or 3 of our most senior leaders at MLPS. And so I'm spending a lot of time over there. And what an incredible group. You should be extremely proud of the service that's being delivered, but also we're in month 1 of an 18-month strategy I have been trying to implement, related to 3 things: investing in people, investing in the service, and I'll talk about what that means, and then investing in facilities to make sure that the people and the service are supported. And that 18-month plan is already starting. We have a new director of paramedic services, Adam Bennett, who I'd love to come out and introduce to your team, Michelle, and talk more about the great things that are happening at MLPS. But we have so many new initiatives that I actually talked to the group today about how we have to spread them out in the news cycle. Just there's so many things coming out now that we have a great relationship with the ministry. And so I know the warden's excited. I'm excited about many of the new things. We started the 18-month plan with a new deployment program that may not mean anything here, but to you at the moment, but I'd love to show you sometime in more detail about what that means for your community and keeping ambulances in your community, not getting drawn into other areas whenever call volume demand is high. And we have a number of new initiatives that are the first in the province, where we're being invited to lead in new areas, everything from NICU to rapid response. It's an exciting day. And our goal really is simple. How do we provide better service to the public, lower the cost to the funders, and keep people from having to go to the hospital in the first place by making better decisions having better opportunity to make decisions in the field. And this is going to make real difference, especially in communities like this. Maybe less so in communities like the City of London, but in communities like this, where across the county where we're seeing less family doctors, we're seeing less emergency room hours. All these things are putting new complex challenges into the paramedics' lap. And what we're doing there is preparing them for that. It's really trying to prepare them for the next 10 years. And David asked me to talk specifically about a little bit about what's happening in Thames Center with paramedic response. There's nothing really different here compared to any other community of your size in Middlesex County. We're seeing call volume growth continue to escalate. People say why? Well, demographically, our population is changing faster than it year by year. It's a multiple of that. Why is that? We have a lot of folks that are in an age group where they would use more paramedic services, that have moved here from other areas, sold their big house and come here and bought a big house here. That's a pretty common story you see throughout the county. So we have a different demographic that's moving in Middlesex County, and also the challenges with call volume are just simply the number of new people that are moving to this area, both in London and the county. But the call volume story is actually old now. I've got a couple of charts I could have popped up here that are just like a hockey stick chart of showing, hey, we were growing at this fast in call volume, and then this happened. Nothing's changed. That's going to keep going. We have seen improvements in other areas on what we call offload delays. It's a story that probably most people are familiar with now. That has improved. And I think the warden shares my concern that with the cuts that are happening in local hospitals, that we might see that tick up again, but it has been tamed for the most part for the last couple of months, but concerned about what these cuts might mean for the impact there. But I'll tell you, the biggest area where I've seen change just in the last 2 years is call volume is steady rocket increasing, but the biggest one I've seen is complexity of calls. So what does that mean? It means a lot of things. Whenever I first moved to Middlesex County, I could count the number of high rises on one hand. It felt like back in those days, that was a little kid, but I was like 26 years ago. But now here we are with many multi-story dwellings, especially in the city. And so complexity is different in that world than it is pulling across the street into this gentleman's driveway or this lady's driveway and coming out. Now you're go up the elevator, treat, come down the elevator, park, turn. So the complexity of every call, just in terms of time it takes to do in a more urbanized environment, even, like in small urban environments, is growing. And then you have traffic, you have a pile of things. But the real complexity is in mental health and drug-related challenges, of course. And we're seeing a massive growth in that. If you talk to, I do what I call parking lot conversations with our paramedics, and hey, how was your day? Well, I spent, I only really did 2 calls because it was 4 hours on this mental health challenge or 4 hours on this drug-related challenge. And so the complexity of those calls are completely different than when we first took over land ambulance. I don't know, 25 years ago, we took over land ambulance probably, and it was a much different world then. It was get the customer, get the patient into the ambulance, take him to the hospital. Now, totally different world we're dealing with. So I see that, and I see that largely in urban settings, but don't think that's not what's happening here as well. The complexity in small urban or medium urban municipalities like yours is really growing on a daily basis. A call is not a call anymore like it used to be. There's a story there about the library. I've already bragged about it a little bit. Lindsay will be happy about that. There's some stuff here about Thames Center specifically about the official plan update, some IT service stuff, and then River Heights, yes, and then River Heights and early on in the family center. The warden knows a lot about that, and then I'll just be quiet and answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Bill or Ina? Go ahead, Councilor Markey.
Can you hear me okay? Through the deputy mayor, through CA Rayburn. So I think that having like the IT shared services is a program that's worked really good for everybody for convenience and cost. Is there any plans to elaborate shared services to create more efficiencies with the municipalities?
Well, it depends. I mean, so let me just tell you the shared services philosophy. It started I think you and I were talking about it when Michelle was in Middlesex Center, I think that's kind of the, yeah, that has to be like the genesis of it. And we were looking at things like, okay, where can we create efficiencies, as you mentioned, without impacting on municipal employees that are already there? So usually that's if there's a consultant or some other need that develops. And then where can we provide a better service? And if we can meet those three things, sort of those reduced cost, better service, and have no impact on, organizational challenges, then we go for it and we talk to council about it. And there's the reason why that's really important is to do those services is because we were trying at the time to make sure that it was just after a lot of restructurings happened. And what we were really trying to do was not have more services delivered to the county. We're really trying to support lower tiers so they had the very best. And I think in IT, you've hit on one that we think is really the best, where, maybe you could afford one person by yourself, but collectively we can have specialists. So there might be a few of those on the horizon that might arise, but there's no active talks right now and having those, unless you know about some that I don't. But we're always looking for those opportunities to support. The goal really is, how do we support local municipalities so collectively we can provide something? And when I say we, I mean the county too, because I was dealing with 3 generalists in IT back when we started the program, and now I have the luxury of having all these specialists. And I knew that it was an area that was growing into where we need specialists. So if you think of areas where you see those criteria, you certainly let us know and we'll start talking about it. But we're really happy with the way things are going with legal. Michelle, you were at the ground floor of that with me too, actually, I think about it. And then we're really happy with where it's going with IT. And then planning as well. It's kind of become a bit of a hybrid model, but it seems to be working, but we're always looking to tweak it. The only thing I've heard about lately that would fall into that category is a big thing whoever comes after me can look at is shared infrastructure around water and wastewater. That's been something that's come up a few times, but not at our county council table. It's come just from comments around, tables like that, but that's a big animal to tackle, to sort of go to that Oxford model in recognition of the fact that we're growing so fast that a coordinated plan related to infrastructure makes sense. Right now, we're coordinating it across municipal boundaries and it's doing just fine. But if we ever wanted to do it a different way, that's the only one I've heard that's coming forward. Oh, maybe there's another one. Ontario, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. It was some good insight. I think one of the things that I missed in your presentation, and I'm only mentioning it because we're heading into October, which is crazy to say. And we like to celebrate our local businesses throughout the month of October here. I'd like if you could explain or elaborate a little bit on some collaborative tourism efforts across the county of Middlesex.
Yeah, I can do better than that because I know I was talking to Kara today and I said that what I asked her to do was to come up, because there's a couple things in here about that I'd like her to explain in greater detail. And also David gave me the question about Economic Development Corporation. And so what I said is, can you come out and do what Ina and I have done with each of the local municipalities after the outcome of this? Because not only do we need to talk about what implementation of the economic development corporation might look like if that's what council decides to do, we also need to talk about this year's investment in economic development from a tourism perspective. And there's the FDI program, or foreign direct investment program. All of those things she said she would come out and do. So we'll follow up with her and get her to talk about them in greater detail. She likes to brag about all the stuff she's doing anyway, but just block some time off and she'll have a lot to tell you about it.
Sounds good. I think we have some things to brag about.
Yes, you do. Like, this is actually kind of ground zero for the tourism stuff too. If you go back in the course of history and where the tourism portion of the county came, there was a large push from the council of the day here for us to get involved with the tourism component. And I don't think anything's changed except that it's graduated to other parts of the county as aggressively as it was being pushed here at the time.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, I just want to thank both of you for your hard work and your leadership with all the things that you do across the county. So, and thanks again for taking the time to be here at our council meeting.
Always very helpful. If they didn't wait to ask questions, our staff is always please, smiles, everything just makes us look better. So that- that's what Fox-
And what we'll do is we'll follow up, David, with this week with sort of a overview of the kind of questions that we were asked, and then also provide you with a lot of details about who to contact if you have more detailed questions. So we'll get that to you as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay, and we have a motion for consideration to receive the presentation by Warden DeVete and Bill Rayburn, CAO for the County of Middlesex. Moved by Counselor Lockie, seconded by Counselor Crockett. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thanks again. Enjoy your evening. Okay, so now we're going to adjourn our regular meeting to go into public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act to consider applications that are listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Counselor Crockett, Counselor Lockie, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Sorry, and that is at 5:26 p.m. Okay. So again, just wanted to reiterate that application 7.1 has been removed at the request of the applicant. So that brings us to 7.2, which is an application for temporary use and zoning bylaw amendment Z1124 for 6508 Trafalgar Street. And so if we can have an overview of the application, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Smybert, through you. So the purpose and effect of this application for zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone a portion of the subject property from the extractive industrial M3 zone to a site-specific extractive industrial M3 number sign zone to permit the construction of a single detached dwelling on the property. The subject lands are zoned extractive industrial, which does not permit a single detached dwelling. The purpose and effect of the application for temporary use is to permit 2 single detached dwellings on the subject lands, being the existing dwelling and the proposed new dwelling, for a temporary period not to exceed 3 years while a new dwelling is being constructed, or 6 months after the occupancy of the new single detached dwelling, whichever occurs first. So the subject property is a 139-acre farm situated on the north side of Trafalgar Street between Elgin Road and Hunt Road. The farm contains a single detached dwelling, a drive shed, and 3 barns. The lands are used for agricultural purposes in the form of field crop cultivation and an active aggregate operation, which was permitted through an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. Both were approved in 2022, as well as a license under the Aggregate Resources Act. So the applicants are proposing to construct a new dwelling, and the applicants have also requested temporary use zoning as they're proposing to retain the existing dwelling while the new one is being constructed. And as noted, this approval would allow for the existing house to remain on the lands for up to 3 years or 6 months after the occupancy of the new dwelling, whichever occurs first. So as part of the site plan for the subject aggregate operation, which was approved by the Ministry of Natural Resources, the existing dwelling was shown on the site plan. Staff have corresponded with the ministry and have been advised there are no concerns with the subject applications. And considering the existing single detached dwelling has been shown on the existing Aggregate Resources Act site plan, and the ministry has no concerns with a new dwelling being constructed to replace the existing dwelling, staff believe permitting the construction of a new dwelling would be appropriate. Thames Center's official plan also contains criteria used to evaluate zoning bylaw amendments, and staff is satisfied that that criteria has been met or is capable of being met during the building permit process. The Thames Center official plan also allows for temporary uses for up to 3 years, including the construction of a second dwelling while retaining the existing dwelling under certain circumstances and subject to criteria. Staff are satisfied that the criteria have been met or are capable of being met by having the owners enter into an agreement with the municipality, which requires providing a security deposit of $5,000, as well as the removal of the existing dwelling no later than 6 months after final completion and the occupancy of the new dwelling, or expiry of the temporary use bylaw, whichever occurs first. At that time, the dwelling would have to be removed from the lands. A draft agreement has been included for council's consideration, and staff would like to note the applicants have signed the temporary use agreement. Staff is of the opinion that the subject application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and is in conformity with both the County of Middlesex and Thames Center official plans. In regards to comments were received from the county engineer, UTRCA, chief building official, director of public works, the drainage superintendent, as well as the Ministry of Natural Resources, and these comments are included within the report. No public comments have been received to date. Staff recommend that application Z11-24 be approved and that the implementing bylaw be approved, and that the Thames Center zoning bylaw be amended to permit 2 single-unit dwellings for a temporary period not to exceed 3 years, as included in the bylaw portion of the agenda, and that the deputy mayor and clerk be authorized to execute a temporary use agreement as included in the bylaw portion of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Alana. Is the applicant here? Okay. You, two are here. Do you have any additional comments that you'd like to make? Oh, sorry, sir. Okay. I'm going to give you, the applicants, the opportunity to add any additional comments. In doing so, though, you'll need to speak into the mic and please give your name and address.
Thank you. I'm Alan Payne, and I'm the majority owner in the property along with my daughter and son-in-law. And the amendment that's been proposed, we're in complete agreement with all the criteria that's been put forward and would be very pleased if there was favorable consideration for it.
Great, thank you. Would you like to speak to the application as well? That's the staff recommendation, yes. Okay, thank you, thank you. And then Sarah, is the applicant online wishing to speak?
Ms. Pike, do you have anything to add?
Sorry, my microphone was muted. So I'm Carla Pike. My dad, Alan Payne, just spoke and completely fine with everything that he said and would just like the support in moving forward with the application that's been submitted.
Great, thank you. Anyone in the gallery wishing to speak to the application? I'm not seeing anyone, so I'm going to turn it over to members of council if you have any questions. Seeing that there's no questions, then we'll close the public meeting. And I'm going to look for some direction from council in terms of how they want to proceed. There is a staff recommendation included within the agenda package. Councilor Lucky.
Yeah, through the deputy mayor, I will make the motion to accept the recommendation.
As per staff. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councilor Crockett. Okay. And I'm just going to read the recommendation then. So it's to approve the application to rezone the portion of the subject lands from extractive industrial M3 zone to a site-specific extractive industrial M3 number sign to permit a single detached dwelling for lands legally described as part of lots 16 to 18, concession 1, and designated as parts 1 to 3 on reference plan 33R 18002 in the municipality of Thames Center and known municipally as 6508 Trafalgar Street. And that the implementing bylaw be approved as included in the bylaw portion of the agenda, and that the municipality of Thames Center comprehensive zoning bylaw 75-2006 be amended to permit 2 single unit dwellings on the property, municipally known as 6508 Trafalgar Street, for a temporary period not to exceed 3 years, as filed by the applicants, and that the mayor and the clerk be authorized to execute the temporary use agreement substantially in the form of the agreement attached as included in the bylaw portion of the agenda. All in favor? And that is carried. The application is approved. You'll receive notice from staff, and then there's an appeal period as well. Okay, thank you. Okay, looking for a motion to close the public meeting at 5:34 p.m. Councilor Crockett, Councilor Lucky, I always want to say DeVoe for some reason. Anyway, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up is a committee of adjustment. We have one minor variance application. It's A924, Justin Cabarda, Jason Cabarda, and Andrew Cabarda for 4150 Catherine Street. And so will the planner please give an overview of the application? Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Smybert, through you. So the purpose and effect of this application is a request to allow the expansion of a legal non-conforming use, being a residential use, to facilitate the construction of an accessory building within the general commercial GC1 zone. In addition to the request to expand a legal non-conforming use, the applicants are requesting reduced setbacks for the rear yard and side yard depths of 1.5 meters or 4.92 feet. So the subject property is a residential lot located on the north side of Catherine Street, east of Charles Street in Dorchester. And the lands contain a single detached dwelling and are serviced by municipal piped water and a private septic system. The lands are used for residential purposes, and the applicants are proposing to construct an 83.6 square meter structure accessory to a residential use in the form of a detached garage, which is otherwise not permitted in the zone. Since the general commercial GC1 zone does not permit residential accessory structures and the proposed setbacks for the accessory building would not meet the general commercial setbacks, relief is also being sought for the proposed setbacks of 1.5 meters from the easterly lot line and 1.5 meters from the rear lot line. The lands are designated general commercial and are located within a core area. And according to the Thames Center, zoning bylaw, they're zoned general commercial. Surrounding land uses are generally residential and commercial in nature. So the Thames Center official plan requires that a number of criteria are satisfied when considering the expansion of a legal nonconforming use, and staff are satisfied that the criteria has been met. In addition to these criteria, the official plan also requires that the 4 tests of a minor variance are also satisfied. So staff have evaluated the application against the 4 tests and is of the opinion that all these 4 tests have been met. Unacceptable adverse impacts on neighboring lands are not anticipated, given that the proposed addition would be located at least 1.5 meters from the easterly lot line and the rear lot line. And additionally, the proposed addition would generally be screened from neighboring land uses to the east by the existing trees, which would mitigate visual impacts. The intent of a legal nonconforming use is to ensure that property owners can continue to use buildings or carry out uses that were once lawfully occupied and or existed at the date of the passing of the bylaw. The subject property has contained a dwelling since the 1800s and is considered a legal nonconforming use since the current general commercial zone doesn't permit residential uses. The proposed detached garage would expand the legal nonconforming use and would allow the property owners to utilize the new structure for residential purposes, which is a use that was legally existing at the date of the passing of the bylaw. So during the circulation of the subject application, agency comments were received from the county engineer, the director of public works, drainage superintendent, and the chief building official, and these comments are included within the report. The Upper Thames River Conservation Authority also submitted comments and advised no objections, and no public comments have been received to date. So staff recommend that application A9-24 be approved for the reasons outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. I don't see the applicant or agent in the gallery. Are they online, sir?
Through you, there's no one online.
Then we will go right to questions from committee members. Any questions? Councilor Crockett?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just have a quick question, Alana. Regarding the height of the structure, would it pertain to the height in residential zone or commercial zone? Because there's quite a difference in that.
So through you, Deputy Mayor, it would pertain to the general commercial zone. To my knowledge, it wouldn't be more than 5 meters, but I can definitely double check and get back to you.
No, that's okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
Any further questions? No. Seeing none, then we'll close the public hearing. And there is a recommended motion for consideration by the committee. Yes, Councilor.
I'd like to propose the recommend motion. Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
that the application for minor variance A9 2024 filed by Justin Cabarda on behalf of Justin Cabarda, Jason Cabarda, and Andrew Cabarda to permit the expansion of a legal non-conforming use being a residential use in the form of a detached garage to permit said detached garage to have an interior side yard setback and rear yard setback of 1.5 meters for a property municipally known as 4150 Catherine Street in the municipality of Thames Center.
Great, thank you. Can I, and then for the reasons outlined as well on the agenda, perfect. Can I get a seconder, please? Counselor Crockett, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we're looking for a motion now to adjourn Committee of Adjustment. Counselor Lucky, Counselor Crockett, and that's at 5:40 PM. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 9.1, adoption of the minutes, and this is the minutes of September 9th meeting. If I can get a mover and seconder, please, to approve those minutes as circulated. Counselor Lucky, Counselor Crockett, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to consent agenda. Again, the items listed under the consent agenda are received for information in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be separated for further action. How would council like to proceed? Okay, can I get a mover then, please, for that motion? Counselor Crockett, second by Counselor Lucky, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, now we go to reports of departments. And first up, we have the Dundas Street Drain, a petition for drainage works. And the drainage superintendent will present the report. Welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good evening, councilors. The request in front of you this evening is a request from a landowner that has been suffering from some serious runoff issues along their property and without a legal outlet, excuse me, having quite some difficulty getting rid of that water. Recently, council has approved a 5 petition request from various properties on the west of this property. This request has the potential to join that request. It also has the potential to go to the east where an existing municipal drain is roughly 50 meters from this lot. We won't know until this area is actually surveyed and properly investigated to determine which route would be the most acceptable. So it could join into an active petition, or it may be its own petition. Other than that, I have nothing more to add and can answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? That's good. Okay, all right. So we do have a recommendation that's been included on the agenda for consideration. How would council like to proceed? Councilor Crockett?
I would like to go ahead with the recommended motion as written.
So to receive the report and that the petition be received and adopted and that Sprayton Associates be appointed to further investigate and prepare the necessary report. Seconder, Councilor Lucky, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay. Next up is the Middlesex County Development Charges, and we have the Interim Director of Planning and Development Services who will be presenting the report.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor and members of council. I'm presenting the report number PDS-050-024 to be received for information. This report outlines the direction and collection of county-wide development charges. Thames Center and all lower tier County of Middlesex municipalities will be implementing the collection of development charges during the issuance of a building permit on behalf of the county for their capital project financing resulting from growth and development. The collection will be for services related to highways, roads, and related infrastructure, fleet, facilities, and growth-related studies. Thames Center development charges, the values presented in this report are for illustrative purposes only, as an inflationary impact has not been applied and pending council approval on the removal of Bill 185 phase-ins. For example, County of Middlesex and Thames Center proposed collection of development charges as of January 1st, 2025 for a single family dwelling in an urban settlement area has an approximated total of 51,473. If in a rural area, the proposed collection amount is 21,104. It is to be noted that we are aware the proposals will increase costs in the development community and increase staff capacity in administering these changes. However, these changes will allow for growth to pay for growth. Subsequently to this report, our Director of Finance, Emily Shinbein, will present the annual development charges and proposed elimination of mandatory phase-in for development charges. I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's not so much a question, but I think this assessment, there is the understanding that there's going to be an increase in charges, but we have continuously talked about growth covering growth. So I think that's just important to note. Thank you.
Thank you. Good comment. Okay, we have a recommendation to receive the report for information. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Lockie? Yep. Councillor Crockett, second. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Okay. And that brings us to the 2023 Annual Development Charges Report. The Director of Financial Services Treasurer will present that report. Welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and good evening, Council. The purpose of this report is to be received for information, and it's the 2023 Annual Development Charges Report. And we also want to make sure that it's made public as per legislation and Council's objections. Annually, the Treasurer is required to present to Council with a financial statement related to DC reserve funds. And the template you see before you today has been provided by Watson and Associates Economics. And this helps to ensure that we've met our legislative requirements. It will be pretty similar to what you've seen in prior years, with the addition of one exhibit that was a result of Bill 23 and some additional reporting requirements. So DC balances can be in a deficit or overdrawn for a number of reasons, as outlined in the report. And it's important to note that as of December 31st, 2023, our total DC reserve fund balance was almost $4 million. It's a little bit lower than 2022, but we did have slower growth in 2023. So I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Lockie.
Yeah, through the Deputy Mayor to Director Shinbein. Do you have any details on like the number of properties that we collected development charges on?
Sure, through the Deputy Mayor. In 2023, we collected DCs on 31 building permits, with the majority being single detached dwellings. There was a couple multi-residential in there as well.
Okay, thank you. And like I noticed that there was a line for accrued interest. Is that a new line or has that always been there?
Through the Deputy Mayor, that has always been there. So as per legislation, any DCs that are in a surplus position are required to earn interest on an annual basis, and any DCs in a deficit position are charged interest, because essentially we're borrowing from ourselves. So we have to make sure that that's recorded throughout the year.
And just one last question, maybe for next year, one thing that would be helpful to see kind of with this chart in each category would just be like a showing of how much, financing is outstanding for each one. It's just easier to kind of project, what the, how much longer we have for the interest charges. That would be helpful.
Through the Deputy Mayor, absolutely, we can include more information regarding the outstanding loans.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the excellent answers.
Great, good question. Thank you. Councillor Crockett, do you have anything?
Not really. I think I was just generally pleased to see that we were actually closer in DC charges. Our difference was less than I was expecting.
All good. Okay, so we have a motion, recommended motion on the agenda, and that's to receive the information and that we make the report available on the website. Can I get a mover for that, please? Mr. Lockie, seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And you're here for the next one as well. And this is 11.4, the elimination of mandatory phase-in for development charges. Go ahead.
Thank you again, Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider removing the phase-in of development charges as per recent legislative changes, thereby enabling the municipality to charge the full rate effective November 1st, 2024. So if you recall, our Thames Center BDC bylaw was passed in March 7th, 2022, and is subject to the mandatory phase-in as per Bill 23. This means that we're currently collecting about 90% of our DC charges, and we won't collect 100% until March 7th of 2026. With the recent changes in Bill 185, when it received royal assent, we have a 6-month time period to remove the mandatory phase-in without having to conduct additional DC studies. So the recommendation before you is to make that change effective November 1st. This would, there's no financial impacts to make this change. However, it would help to ensure that more growth is paying for growth, as well as it'll enhance our capacity to fund future critical growth infrastructures. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for the director? Go ahead.
Yeah, through the Director Mayor, this seems like a no-brainer to me, so thanks so much for getting on top of this and bringing this forward.
Councilor Crockett? No? Okay. Again, there's a recommended motion on the agenda. Can I get a mover, please? Councilor Lucky? Councilor Crockett? And that's that the report be received for information and that council approve the elimination of the phase-in period for development charge rates and implement the full 100% rate effective November 1st, 2024, in accordance with Bill 185, which received royal assent on June 26, 2024, and that staff be authorized to implement this resolution. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item 12, reports of committees. So we have some items listed under that heading, and they can all be approved by council in one motion, or council members may request that one or more of the items be separated for further action. How would you like to proceed? Councilor Lucky,
I would like to receive as one motion.
are you moving that?
I would like to make the motion to receive
Thank you.
all items.
Councilor Crockett? Sorry, to approve.
To approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion
Yes.
to approve.
Councilor Crockett, you're good with seconding that? Yeah. Okay, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. No unfinished business, no notices of motion, no business. That brings us to bylaws. So we have bylaws 2024 through 2024. Are there any questions with respect to any of those bylaws? And if not, is there a motion to adopt those? Councilor Lucky?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that bylaws 62-2024 through 68-2024 be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councilor Crockett? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And just a reminder that the next regular meeting will be at the Thorndale Lions Community Center, starting at 5 o'clock. And the meeting after that will be held on Monday, October the 21st, here in Dorchester at 5 o'clock. And that brings us to a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilor Crockett, second by Councilor Lockie. All in favor? And that's carried at 5:52 p.m.